So they were a dynamic team with tremendous influence on the American public. And the public was fascinated by them. Here they are sitting in the front yard of their home, of Franklin's mother's home in Hyde Park, New York. It's called Springwood. This is where he grew up, and it really was the center of his life. And when you look at this beautiful picture, you can see the rolling hills. You can still see much of this landscape there as it exists. And one of FDR's closest assistants was a woman named Missy LeHand, Marguerite Missy LeHand. She had come with him when he first ran for vice president. She was with him through his polio and as governor. And she became really almost like a chief of staff when he moved to the White House. And she took a lot of home movies. So we're going to look at some of those home movies now to give you a little bit of a behind the scenes look at the Roosevelts. We can go ahead to the video. Now here he is in Warm Springs, Georgia. Actually, so this is in the backyard of Springwood again. You can see Eleanor knitted. Eleanor knitted constantly. In footage of her, you'll see her knitting on boats. You'll see her knitting in cars and on trains. It was a way she could be productive. And Franklin, of course, was enormously intelligent and absorbed huge amounts of information. So even when he was on vacation or on his home and he came up to Springwood a lot, they would bring stacks of papers to read and to sign. That's his daughter, the tall blonde, and his grandchildren there playing in the backyard. This is the home at Springwood. Now he had a study before the library was built. He had a study there in his mother's house, which is where he did his official work. That's Missy on the left and McIntyre on the right, Marvin McIntyre, who was essentially his formal secretary. And in this room, which you can still see when you visit the house, you can see the books and the desk. And this is where he would play with his stamp collection. He was a very avid collector. He collected stamps and ship models and naval manuscripts. And one of the strange things about this situation was that they didn't really have their own home. So this was FDR's mother's home, not his home. So here they are back in Warm Springs, Georgia. There's Missy in the middle there. So someone else was using her camera to shoot this. And you can see, it's a rare footage. You can see how withered his legs are. And the reason he loved these pools at Warm Springs was that they allowed him to feel like he was able to swim and had some freedom. And he spent almost half of his fortune converting that into a rehabilitation center. So here again, here's some of the home movies of that still photo you saw. And the relationship between them at this point was very complicated because Eleanor was still somewhat removed emotionally from their relationship, and she was developing her own persona as a very, very active first lady. And Franklin was brilliant in the way he would use her. If she would come out with something, with a new idea and say something, if it generated a lot of controversy, he would say, "Oh, that's my missus. I have no control over her." But if it was well accepted, then they would move on with it. And he could use her as a bellwether.